go where you're celebrated and not just where you're tolerated.
Always inspired to do something more.
I took it personal, but I took it personal because I personally know myself and I know my worth.
I'm going to do what I want to do, how I want to do it.
Only limits that I'm going to put on is the ones that I take on. I have something to prove and I'm going to go prove it.
I'll try to read your intention behind the question.
God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the call. Well, all we need is faith of the size of a mustard seed.
I 100% can tell you I was groomed for success.
Not so many people will give themselves permission to pivot. Nothing is going to be handed to me. There's no shortcuts in success.
My mission was to gather tools and use them.
Enemies will be a footstool indeed. I'm going to play chess. I'm not playing checkers.
Don't worry about your platform. Be intentional about your impact.
Man can't stop what God has already blessed, what God has already ordained. It's so important for people to just have a good routine. How you start your day sets the tone for your day, so you got to put on your armor.
The devil won't stop chasing you.
Welcome back to another episode of Unplugged with Pam, brought to you by Chosen Global, where we not only showcase powerful stories, but amplify voices one story at a time. And today I am super excited, as I am every episode, because we are interviewing the one, the only legendary Super Bowl champion, Mr. BJ Daniels. Hi, BJ.
How you doing?
Amazing. So happy to have you here with us.
Thankful to be here. Honestly, this is a beautiful setup.
Thank you. Thank you. So you were in the NFL for 7 years. A lot of people know you in the community for being a mental health advocate. Also for recently you published a new book, Beyond the Red Zone.
Sure.
But tell people a little bit deeper about your journey, beyond football, but just talk a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Tallahassee, Florida. My dad was a dorm director. I'm at Florida State. So I kind of grew up in a dorm room, actually.
Okay.
So I didn't really grow up on the suburbs or the south side of town, but I grew up with a bunch of college kids above me. There was a single bedroom apartment, with my mom, me, and my dad. And, I just remember growing up, I always wanted to be a Florida State football player one day and grow up and just aspire to have more. But, my life and journey has been up and down. I've been successful. There's some things that I failed at, but they were also lessons at the same time. But I'm just, blessed and happy to be in the position I am now, where I get to talk about mental health and use my experiences to help other people and actually put it in a book. And I'm just thankful for that.
I love that. That's amazing. So you said that you always wanted to be an FSU football player, but you played for USF. So how was that transition?
Yeah. So in high school, I was, I'm 5'11", so I'm a, African-American quarterback. There's some stigma against that. I don't look like the stereotypical quarterback you would see in the NFL based off height and weight, but I always had dreams and goals of playing quarterback. So I actually turned down, Alabama, Michigan, LSU, Memphis to be exact. And, I wanted to be a two-sport athlete, football and basketball.
Okay.
I was Mr. Florida in football and basketball when I was coming up. And I just wanted to go to a school that loved me instead of liked me. So the biggest difference for me was, when I throw an interception, I'm late class, I don't do what I'm supposed to do. Would that school still surround me with love and support me? I fell in love with USF and Coach Jim Levitt. So USF was the first school that ever offered me a scholarship. Florida State never offered me a scholarship, no matter how talented I was in that city. But, by the grace of God, I earned a 4-year scholarship to USF. And the story everyone talks about is my freshman year, having the opportunity to play against Florida State, and I was the starting quarterback for USF.
Nice.
We go to Tallahassee, and I'm 18 years old in Doak Campbell Stadium with 75,000 people on an all-white day. All the odds are stacked up against little old USF, and we beat.
Let's go.
So that was the beginning of the story.
That's amazing. So let's back up a little bit, because you said that, you grew up basically in a dorm.
Yeah.
So would you say, and you wanted to be basically a two-athlete player, right?
Right.
So what made you choose football instead of basketball?
Yeah. Well, to be completely honest,
Yes.
I averaged 27 points in high school.
Okay.
Basketball was my thing. Memphis, the reason they were part of my recruiting process, because at the time, John Calipari, who's a very well-known basketball coach, was the head coach for Memphis, and he had Derrick Rose as his point guard, who eventually went to the Chicago Bulls and played the NBA. But I was hoping to be like Derrick Rose,
Got it.
go play football and basketball. And USF was a school that would allow me to play both, to be honest with you. So close to home, I'm a Florida kid.
Yeah.
Tallahassee is only 4 hours away. I don't got to deal with the snow. This school loves me because Jim Levitt was a great, person for me. But when I starting in football, when I beat Florida State, Coach Levitt wouldn't let me play basketball anymore. So what people don't know is that my first year of college, I redshirted, and so I played basketball that year. The very next year, I was a redshirt freshman. So I wasn't a true freshman playing against Florida State. I was a little seasoned, if you will. So, they allowed me to play basketball, but once I starting at football, Coach Jim Levitt kind of pulled the plug, and said, "Hey, look, my quarterback, getting hurt in
Right.
basketball." But I was real with myself as well. And like I said, I'm 5'11". I think I really worked at basketball, maybe, but at the end of the day, I kind of foresaw my future being in football because of my physical nature, the gift that God gave me to be able to throw the football, read coverages, be a leader. I do all the intangible things to lead a football team. So it wasn't a hard decision for me to just stick to football. Because even to this day, I'm 36 years old and I'm still playing basketball now. So I'm feeling that itch and that love that I've always had.
Okay, that's amazing. I love that for you. And something else that you said was like, don't go where you're liked, but go where you're loved.
Yeah.
And that's important because a lot of times we go to places and granted, yes, we're gonna follow the money, right?
Yeah.
Because that's also important. However, I think it's also important to go where you're celebrated and not just where you're tolerated. And that's also like a huge difference between being liked and being loved. So I want to go a little bit back as well, because for you to even want to become this all-star athlete,
Yeah.
whether it was pursuing basketball, football, there had to be like some type of seeds planted. Did that come from your dad because of his nature of work at FSU? Or talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. My entire family loves sports and have played sports. My uncle played basketball with Charles Barkley at Auburn. My
Right.
dad played college basketball at Bethune-Cookman College. My mother grew up in athletics. My granddad, both my little sisters, played high school basketball. My little sister played college basketball. I was the one that grew up with the basketball in my hand, but I kind of diverted, to football. But the seed I think that was planted in me early in the story I tell in my book. I talk about the odds being stacked against you and someone telling you no, that you can't do something. And there was once upon a time when I was in that dorm room, there was a big hill, the dorm room in Florida State. It was a big hill. And I didn't see, kids, I saw college students. And I'm watching kids on bicycles and skateboards they're 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And always aspired to do something more. And I had a little fire truck and I'm watching these skateboards fly around, and I asked my parents, like, "Hey, look, it's about time. I'm 6. I need a skateboard." So they told me, "No, you're not big enough. You're not ready."
Yeah.
So I defied them, and I went to the top of the hill. I put my skateboard down, and I stood on top of my skateboard, and was going to show them. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I want to do, how I want to do it, and I think that set the precedence for the rest of my life. Every level that I've been on, I've been told you're not big enough, you're not tall enough, you're not ready, you don't fit the mold, and that has always pushed me and propelled me to do more. That kid that went down that hill, in that fire truck, and scraped up his face,
Yeah.
is the same kid that was too short to go to college and play quarterback, which is the same kid that was too short and not tall enough to go to the NFL or good enough. The same kid that, got drafted in the NFL. And then even now, the question people ask me all the time that it absolutely gets on my nerves because I try to read your intention behind the question. The question is, what are you doing now? And now I've transitioned into a space that people probably wouldn't think I would be in, which is in healthcare and talking about mental health and using my story and journey to help. So I've always thrived myself on that, and it's been a heck of a journey.
I love that because it shows that, first of all, family is so important
Yeah,
because, the seeds that are planted in us from just such a young age and your entire family lineage, right? From uncles to grandparents to siblings being athletes, it just spread like wildfire among your family, which is really cool to see.
yeah,
And also, just like you said, the moment that you were told no, you were just like,
absolutely.
watch me, right? And I'm gonna defy the odds. I may have scraped up my face. I may have gotten a little bit of bruises
Yeah,
along the way,
yeah,
but I think that was also a huge defining moment for you because it kind of, like you said, set the precedent for you being able to have that thicker skin.
yeah,
Because whether you are in athleticism or you are an entrepreneur or you are a career person, just as men and women in general, it's not too many people like to be told no.
mm,
And the number one reason people quit anything is because their feelings get hurt,
yeah.
right?
Uh,
So it's
I'm light skinned. I'm sensitive. Trust me. I take it personal. I really
yeah.
do. Yeah,
But some people could take it personal and then let that hinder them. And then some people take it personal and now they got a chip on their shoulder. Like,
where
I'm gonna go prove you that I took it personal, but I took it personal because I personally know myself and I know my worth and I know how far I can go. And the only limits that I'm going to put on is the ones that I take on, right? Instead of letting people speak that upon you.
Right.
And I think that's a really cool defining moment in your life because it just catapulted you in every aspect. So you were a USF, you beat Tallahassee
Yeah.
the first game, and your coach is like, listen, I can't have my all-star quarterback get hurt and playing basketball. So kind of made you choose a lane. And, I always say, like, when you focus on something, whatever you focus on the longest becomes the strongest. And you're definitely a great example of that because going into the NFL, even though you were like, I may have not been their ideal candidate, but I have something to prove and I'm gonna go prove it.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about how's that journey?
The NFL is very interesting, to say the least. So just we'll go back. So you think of a young child, right, who has two loving parents, and they want to encourage him to do his best, and whatever he can do, he can put his mind to. They put a football, basketball, baseball in front of him. They try to make sure his grades are good, he's fed, he's clothed, all those things. But I 100% can tell you I was groomed for success.
And
I think that's what all of our parents, want for us. One thing that you never can really get ready for is what happens when it doesn't go right. I don't think we teach our kids that, per se. And it takes hard lessons sometimes. We want to save everybody. We want to love everybody. And sometimes they got to go through it. So from 6 years old to 23, it was, I want to do whatever I can do to be successful and make it. And then when I turned 23 years old, it was my senior year of college, and I break my ankle. So I'm crying, I'm upset, I'm frustrated. I don't think that I'm gonna play in the NFL. I'm mad with my parents, I'm mad with my team, I'm mad with God. I'm just distraught, and I don't know what's next. And I question, like, God, why would you bring me this far? And then I break my ankle 3 games before I get to have an opportunity to go to the NFL. So I
Wow.
already know if I'm going, but I won't even have this opportunity if my ankle is broken. And that's what my mind was. And I still, was able to get drafted, and when I got drafted, it was one of the best days of my life, to be
Okay.
honest with you. And
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. It was amazing. I mean, if I go back to draft day, I'm sitting in the living room with my parents, my girlfriend, and her parents at the time, and I'm hoping to get drafted on Friday. It doesn't happen. Okay, Saturday it doesn't happen. So then Sunday's the last day, and I'm like, the pizza's cold, the wings are terrible, and popcorn's half eaten, and we're just like, it's not a draft party anymore.
Yeah.
But I get called in the last round, the 7th round.
Wow.
And when I get picked up by, the San Francisco 49ers, I go to a team that I had already been to the Super Bowl the year before. Colin Kaepernick was the starting quarterback. So I wasn't even thinking about starting. I was just happy to be on the team.
Yeah.
That was my thing. And when I got to the NFL, it was uphill battle from there. People think the goal is to make it to the NFL, but after my career was over, in hindsight, that's not the goal. The goal is to play in the NFL. And I've been on probably the best teams, the most glorified or highlighted teams of a decade. I got drafted by the 49ers. I played 3 years with the Seattle Seahawks. There with Russell Wilson. I'm there with Marshawn Lynch, and we're going back-to-back Super Bowls. I was with the Giants for a little bit with Odell and Eli Manning, and then I finished my career in Atlanta with Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu and Matt Ryan. So, even then, I'm like, man, I wish I would've went to the Browns. Like, I should have went to a team that was terrible and started or played,
Yeah.
but I was on the three or four of the best teams in that century. So, and then I had the chance to go to 3 Super Bowls as well. So my experience was me gathering tools and information, which I didn't know, and resources, so that I can now do what I'm doing now. And I tell people this all the time. I love and respect any NFL player that's made it. But if I were to compare myself, which I've done, I think we all do,
Yeah.
I've compared myself to other people's careers and journeys. I've compared myself to, the Colin Kaepernicks of the world, or even Russell Wilson, right? But the blessing in this is I still work out every day. I think I can still do what Russell Wilson is currently doing, which he's playing. And no disrespect to him, but I don't think he can do what I'm doing, and what my journey looks like and how I'm thriving in my lane. And I take pride in that. I take pride in that.
As you should.
That's helped motivate and move me in multiple spaces. So
I love that. And I'm gonna back up a little bit as well because
yeah,
you said when you were 23 years young,
yeah,
it was like the first time that not probably not the first obstacle, but the first time that you felt defeated in a
Yeah.
sense because you were breaking your ankle. What allowed you the mindset shift to even have the expectancy that come draft day, you were still gonna get drafted?
I didn't, and I really didn't. I didn't know. I did not know, and I sat there in front of that TV nervous.
Mm.
Nervous because who wants damaged goods? Because my ankle was still not 100%. I broke my ankle in November, and the draft was in April,
Wow.
so I'm not 100%. I'm low key kind of embarrassed a little bit because I have all these people in the living room who are here to celebrate me,
Yeah.
in the hopes that I would, be successful. But then, you can see the smile kind of disappear off my face. From Friday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday.
Yeah.
So you see guys that get drafted in front of you that you compared yourself to in college, that you were either in your mind better than, or they just were on different teams. They were on highly touted teams. USF, as young as they are, we're still not even 50 years old. Like, I'm 36. I'm still older than our football program.
Wow.
So if you look at the Floridas and the Georgias and the USCs and the Texases of the world, I mean, Michigan's, they already have their clout built.
Yeah.
So if you play for them, people automatically recognize that this is 100 years of football that they play. They're in bigger conferences. They play different competition. So it was rough. It was really rough, and I didn't have any, type of, you know, self confidence at the time that that was going to happen for me. I just was asking God to give me a shot, give me an opportunity. I did have my degree in criminology, so I kind of knew what my plan was going to be if it didn't happen. But between my faith, religion, my parents being there, that support, I think that's what kind of pulled me out of just the slums. Because to be honest with you, while I'm waiting for the draft, I still had to go to rehab. I still had to, take my, calcium pills and drink milk and do all the things that's necessary for me to get healthy.
Cover. Yeah.
So there was a little bit of fire in my eye, but it wasn't that big. It wasn't that big. Yeah.
But I think that what I love about that story, and I remember hearing, when I was listening to your book on Audible,
Yeah.
and that moment, that anticipation, right? That every athlete, when they're going to get drafted kind of goes through. But I also love that faith played such a huge part.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that is like your parents' prayers, the people that love you. And that's why it's so important to have people around you that love on you, people around you that support you, that are encouraging you. Because even when you're tired or you feel defeated or you may not feel qualified, they're like, you're more than qualified.
Yeah.
God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the call.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
amen, right? So it was one of those things that having that, being surrounded by so much faith, like you said, was what uplifted you.
Yeah.
And even though you say like, oh, it was just like a little bit of faith, but all we need is faith of the size of the mustard seed.
That's it.
And the quality of the relationships, I always say like the people around you, those are like your roots, and they're either allowing you to blossom or they're, forcing you to decay just because they're not empowering you and encouraging you. And that's so beautiful to see. Because even though you're like, my smile was kind of dwindling down from Friday to that's good, all these things,
Yeah.
you still found yourself just so, because you were surrounded by so much love and so much encouragement, and you had so much faith more than anything. And you were still talking to God like, listen, just give me a shot, give me an opportunity,
Yeah.
and asking you shall receive, right? So
Absolutely.
I love that. So you went in the NFL, you played for some of the absolute best teams
Mhm.
in the world, and you won a Super Bowl championship with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that feeling was like.
Unreal. I mean, it happened so fast. Like, I don't even think, like, I couldn't slow down enough to really even just enjoy it.
The process at all.
Yeah, I mean, so as a kid in sixth grade, you always, for me, where I'm from in Tallahassee, we always did like a sixth grade or eighth grade trip. And, I don't think my parents at the time financially were ready to allow me to go on this eighth grade trip to New York. So I was mad. I was
Yeah.
upset. And little did I know, full circle moment, I'm in New York City at MetLife Stadium in the Big Apple.
Wow.
We are the most highly touted. We're the show. The Seattle Seahawks are the show. The Super Bowl's in MetLife Stadium in New York City. And that was my first time going to New York. And we're there playing against the Denver Broncos. And I'm watching Eli Manning run out the tunnel. former guests you've had on this podcast as well, Dominic Rogers-Cromartie, right out the tunnel. I'm watching Kayvon Webster, who's one of my former teammates from USF, who's from Miami, right out the tunnel. Jerome Murphy, who formerly played at USF, right out the tunnel. So I'm looking at these guys across the field. I'm like, yeah, y'all cool, but I want to beat y'all. Y'all are my friends and all, but
Yeah.
it was crazy. And then we win. We beat the Broncos, pretty well that night. And I mean, once the game's over, you see 100 cameras in our locker room. You see Marshawn Lynch in the corner, playing music as loud as he can. You see champagne being popped, and I'm doing my best to everyone's taking their turn to get their picture with the Super Bowl trophy.
Right.
I got I put my suit on, and you got to figure out what you're gonna wear. I think I'm dapper. And,
Yeah.
we ended up going to a party that night, and Live in Miami brought their party to New York,
Wow.
and a club, and I'm looking to my right, and I had previously met this gentleman, so this was a highlight of my life and career because I'm a fan. But I had previously met this gentleman, and I see him in the club again, and he waves me over to his table. So I'm sitting at a table and partying and just enjoying the Super Bowl win, and this gentleman recognizes me, I recognize him, and we just doing it up. But full disclosure, that's Drake.
Wow.
So I'm invited to Drake's table, and he recognized me from meeting me during the season because he visited Seattle. That was one of his favorite teams. So for me to be in a completely different city in New York in the hottest club, and Drake's waving me over to his table, and then I'm having the opportunity to toast with him, celebrate, and take pictures and all that. I don't remember half of it. It happened stuff like that.
Shut it. I need it.
Yeah, but it was amazing.
That is incredible. Congratulations. That's so awesome. And I think that what also is just so powerful about that, because obviously, like, I know you and you're super humble about things. And that moment also is just like, it gives so many, children hope, right?
Yeah.
So many minorities just hope of,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what your size is. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter if you feel like you failed. It doesn't matter if you broke an ankle or torn ligament. If it's for you, it's for you. And if you work hard enough, like you're going to accomplish it. And those things sometimes you're like, I'm tripping about not going on this field trip because, and I've also been there, like moments that you're tripping as kids because you're like,
Yeah.
dang, we don't got it. I'm like, how can I fundraise for it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then you have those full circle moments like you had, and it's like, man, it was worth not going to New York as an eighth grader to be able to be in the heart of the city in MetLife Stadium, being able to not only rub shoulders with some of the greatest of the greats, but beat them,
Yeah.
beat them. And then the celebratory time was just like with some of the most iconic individuals from,
Right.
but also just you just having that moment with, man, I'm partying with Drake as well.
Right.
It's okay that you don't remember the time, but your heart.
We had other opportunities after the fact.
Yeah.
So we share the same birthday.
Nice.
So that's my claim to fame. Me and Drake, same birthday, October 24th. Just to make sure everyone knows that. But even after that, I mean, I established a relationship with him because he's cool. And I've been to Vegas probably 5 more times after that to celebrate our birthday together.
Nice.
It was a heck of a journey. Seriously.
I love that. I love that. So you win the Super Bowl and you're living in Miami at the time and you're, in all of your glory. So talk to me about what life looked like after that. Like, how was your career after that? Do you feel like it got harder for you? Do you feel that it was just now cake because you already won a Super Bowl championship? But even going back to kind of what you said, you're like, the goal wasn't to make it.
Right.
And, hindsight is always 2020. Now you're like, it was also to just play while I was there.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the journey after winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, to go from starting quarterback, I started off 4 years in high school. Then I started off 4 years in college.
Mm.
I loved the game, period. I would do it for free. And I felt like, sitting the bench or sitting behind somebody wasn't me. My competitive nature was always to get out and play. So, my first 2 years, with the 49ers and then, you know, getting, cut and going to Seattle, Super Bowl there, then go back to another Super Bowl again, back to back. The honeymoon for me was over. Like, it's great. I met these people. I went to these places. I've experienced all this stuff, traveling, meeting new people. I'm going to different stadiums. All my friends are now people that I potentially watched on TV. Now it's time. Now my clock was kind of ticking. Like, okay, well, let's get on this football field though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on the team. I'm grateful to be on the team. I work hard to be on the team. I have to do everything that Russell does or Kaepernick did or Marshawn. Like, I have to go to practice, study. I gotta go to meetings. I gotta know my material. I have to perform in practice. I have to prove that every day because there's people they'll claim off the street in a heartbeat, you know? So through that process, I was mad with Seattle probably my 3rd year. Russell never had gotten hurt. I never wished that upon him, but they were potentially bringing in other quarterbacks to kinda be in front of me. Some of those guys were Terrell Pryor. They brought in another quarterback from the University of Washington. So I was frustrated by the fact that I'm still having to compete every summer against new people. So
So you've been there already.
I had already been there.
So did all the work.
Yeah, hell yeah. So they asked me, with my athletic ability, could I play a different position? Because they wanted to use my explosiveness on offense, to be able to run and catch and I'm quick and fast. And I agreed to it because I wanted to play.
Right.
And that's where I was at. And there, nothing against anybody that works at Walmart, but there was a running joke. Like you either do this or go to Walmart.
Mm.
So at that point, I think I had kind of sold myself on I did everything I could do to be a quarterback, but now it's this or Walmart. Okay, well, fine. I'll change my position. I did that. Now, I don't think I know for a fact the NFL never looked at me as a quarterback ever again because each team I played for after that, it was more of an athlete. And I was, in hindsight, I wish I would have just, trusted my gut, and just stuck with the position. And if they would have cut me, they cut me. There's another team out there that would have used my services at the position, at the quarterback position. But I mean, the rest of my journey was great. I mean, I can't say I used to think that playing on multiple teams was a bad thing, that you just didn't find a home and could stick. But I did get drafted. I did play with Seattle for 3, 4 years, but I also had the opportunity to go to New York, where I now
Right.
would have never would have met or played with Odell. Linked back up with DRC again.
Right.
Dominic Rogers, and then went to Atlanta, had another opportunity to go to Super Bowl, and now meeting Sanu and Mohamed Sanu and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, the Devontae Freeman. So I have a very big platter or plethora of NFL guys I play with that I can call friends. And I think that's more valuable now than it would have been if I would have only learned one organization, one team, and just committed to one job essentially.
Yeah.
And I find a blessing in that, to be honest.
Absolutely. And I think that's powerful in itself too, because it just shows the importance of building relationship,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and a lot of times and it also is like, it shows your humility, but also just your love for the game.
Mm,
Cause it's like, I don't care what position I play. Like the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back.
yeah.
And it takes a certain dynamic individual and a certain level of emotional intelligence as well for you to be like, it's bigger than me. I want to play and I don't necessarily want to be on the bench. It doesn't necessarily matter that I'm not playing the position that I originally signed up for because plans may change, but the decision didn't to continuously just play and give her your all and give her your heart. And like you said, that was what allowed you to build relationships with so many amazing people that you get to call friends. And you can't put a price on social capital. You can't put
Right.
a price
Yeah.
on the people that you have around you because that's so important.
Mm.
So, what was one of those moments in the NFL that you feel like, was there ever any defining moment in the NFL that you felt that was just like, it wasn't in alignment with you or anything that you felt that you had to either unplug from or disassociate yourself from or just kind of like unlearn and around on your journey?
Yeah. You can get caught up with keeping up with the Joneses per se. So for example, money, cars, clothes, jewelry, women, the access, the priority treatment, all those things come with that NFL tag and that logo. That's not real life.
Yeah.
And then when you take that jersey off, then you figure out what people really think about you and
Yeah.
how they really feel about you. And, I can say those are the things that I had to unplug from. I really wanted to be everything that an NFL football player consisted of. And that's everything that you or social media glorifies. But then I also had to realize, okay, well, for example, Marshawn's a very close friend of mine. We also don't make the same amount of money. Matt Ryan's a great, quarterback and Russell's a great, person and quarterback as well. But I'm still trying to earn a job.
Yeah.
They have one. So, when it comes to, maybe doing this or doing that, showing up later or not having to be that invested in certain things, not saying that they never were, but there are certain moments and things that I can't do,
Yeah.
and I cannot participate in. And one of the biggest things that really shook my world was in 2017. My grandmother was dying of cancer. And at the same time, she's on her hospital bed and not, being able to, really fight it off and be successful in her journey. But my little sister was 22 years old at the time, and she was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. So she's 22 with cancer. My grandmother has cancer. And I was a kid that always grew up and said to myself, if you go to the hospital, it's over. Like, I don't even think you gonna come back out. Like, that's how my life has been, as a young child. So the hospitals and healthcare has always traumatized me,
Yeah.
and my grandmother lost the battle with cancer that year. And then, but for me, when I went to practice every day, it no longer was the thing that would glorify or make me look like an NFL football player.
Mm.
I was going to work so then I could therefore help with my little sister's treatment. So my why had changed as well. So I'm plugging back in, but to a different socket. Now it's okay, you're going to work for your little sister. You're going to work because you want to make sure she gets her treatment. At the same time, she had to take off from college.
Wow.
So then I'm also making sure I'm going to work so then I can make sure her tuition is paid when she has the opportunity to go to community college because she wasn't able to attend a university at the time. So, and I find a victory in that.
Absolutely.
I thank God woke me up because, and the proof of that is my little sister is 100% cured of cancer.
Let's go.
It only took a year. And now this is her fourth or fifth year as a third grade teacher.
Right.
So now she's investing and pouring back into others. So, that was unplugging that, what it looks like,
Mhm.
what it is on the outside for everybody else, that had to go. And,
Yeah.
I still like certain things and nice things and stuff like that, but my why has changed. My purpose and my intentions have changed. So I'm still being judged to this day. I have an NFL tag on me and that thing doesn't really necessarily go away. I'm not concerned about what other
Yeah.
people think, how they feel about it, because I know why I'm doing what I'm,
Absolutely.
and I think that's more important.
Yeah. Man, that's amazing. My condolences, on your grandmother, and I know how that feels firsthand, of course,
Mm.
but I also think that it's a beautiful thing because it was a mindset shift for you
Yeah.
that it caused because you're like, all these guys can just stay out late, be at the club, or, partake in the life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still probably did it, but not to the extent, right?
Yeah.
And you were even saying like, "Hey, I probably couldn't stay out that late because I couldn't afford to show up late. I had to make sure that I'm paying my dues."
Right.
But it was also, your heart posture changed and your mindset shifted at the same time because you're like, now I have to be the person that's making sure that my little sister is good.
Yeah.
Now I have to be the person that's making sure that is like, I ain't got time to play no games.
Mhm.
And, we get praised in public, right? Or
Right.
paid in public for the things that we do in private when nobody's watching because putting in those 10,000 hours, putting in those reps when nobody's watching is harder.
Yeah.
It's harder because you don't really have that camaraderie around you, but it's like you said, your why had changed of what had you getting up and, earlier, what had you making sure that you were on your P's and Q's, making sure that you were taking care of family and making sure that you were just taking care of the things that mattered most.
Yeah.
And not too many people can actually say that they're willing to just sacrifice that because being in the position that you were, you could have easily just been like, well, this is kind of like the life that I have now. And those things can be put on the back burner, but you did it. You chose to say, no, I'm going to show up for the people that have always showed up for me. I'm going to show up for my family. I'm going to make sure that they're good. And that's amazing as well. So talk to us about, when you transitioned out of the NFL, what did that look like for you?
It was rough. It was really rough. It's not that I didn't have my degree. It's not that I didn't have ideas of what I was interested in. But like I mentioned before, you know, while you wear that football jersey, everyone's like, pull on your coattail,
Yeah.
want to hang out.
Treating you a certain way.
Yeah. And it's the call me if you need anything. It's the, take my number down. Let's do lunch. It's all those things. But when you take it off, those people aren't there, and that's hard to deal with. And but you also figure out who was really there for you to begin with. And I've learned that a lot of people will be in your life for a while. People are like, well, how do you not know? Well, they play their role. I mean, it's the same thing in relationships. You know, you're with somebody and you don't really know them. Unfortunately, you find out a little more about them once
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, it was rough, trying to find my next transition in job and the things I wanted to do and my interests. The first couple of times I started looking up jobs, I only looked at the salary and
Yeah.
I didn't know I didn't have any experience, like, at all. So, I learned you can't do that.
Right.
You know I was living in Atlanta. I had no type of social equity there whatsoever. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared. I'm in the city of Atlanta. I'm not a Atlanta Falcon anymore. I'm not a rapper. I'm not a singer. I'm not a dope boy. I'm not a scammer. I'm not any of these things. A movie star. I'm not on Love and Hip Hop. So I'm not any of these things that runs this city.
Mhm.
So my popularity, social equity was at a zero. So I just came off an injury. So I had sports hernia, surgery. So that's when you tear your, lower, abdominal wall, right? So from running so much and training. So I'm dealing with rehabbing that. I don't have an NFL team, have an apartment, I'm not in a relationship. I'm living in the city by at the time, I just kinda really felt like I was living by myself and had many a nights where, it's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm crying and upset. I'm trying to figure out what does life look like, and I don't know where to go. I can't go to Indeed and find it. I can't, just so many different things and, I'm watching my bank account dwindle. I went a whole year in Atlanta with no job, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm about to do.
Right.
I'm calling the people in those business cards that I used to get and no one's answering. They do answer, but they want to talk about football. They don't want to give me a job opportunity
Mm.
because I don't have the experience as well. No one's taking a shot. So, I had to leave Atlanta and leaving Atlanta was hard because it was the most humbling thing in the world for me. I had just went to 3 Super Bowls. I had met President Obama. I went to the White House. I did all these things that were so successful. And, I had to go back home. I had to go back to where, Tallahassee is where I'm from and kind of find out who I was in my grassroots. And I learned going back to Tallahassee that I needed to serve, I needed to give. And I took all the tools from every NFL team, every coach, every player, every city. I mean, I've even played football in Canada. I even did that, for a while. So I took all those things and brought it back to my city. And I started QB1 and it was a training company where I would teach young athletes how to play quarterback. And the thing that mattered to me the most was not, we get hung up on athletic ability, height, and weight. There's a certain level of knowledge you have to play this position. And I don't think from the fundamentals aspect of how your feet should be, the hand placement of your hand, reading coverages, knowing what to look at, what to look for, how to process information while you just got hit in the mouth, well, how to stay calm and still, produce, how to be a leader in the locker room, how to talk to the janitor and the president of the university and be able to be in those rooms where I was in. I wanted Tallahassee to have that. So from there, serving, I ended up being high school head coach. I ended up being the head coach for the high school that I went to.
Wow.
And I watched how God tested me because he took me from that, QB1 to high school head coach. But I'm the high school head coach washing the JV and varsity uniforms on a Friday night, 12 midnight after a game. So serving the best way I could with roaches running on the floor and these high school kids don't wear deodorant. Like, it was like all that. So from there to this to, okay, doing that the best of my ability to now we're going to bring you back to say, we're going to bring you back to Tampa and we want you to coach quarterbacks. So I did that for a year. That coaching staff got fired. So if the head coach gets fired, then I get,
Right.
well, he got fired. I moved me over to raising money. So I ended up raising money for USF and the new football stadium. And I served and while I was there, it wasn't about the raising the money part. It was about my door being open and having an office to where these college students will come and see me and they would dump on me. They would tell me all the things that they're going through and facing and struggling with, and I would laugh at them, and they would get so mad, because I would start the conversation completely wrong. Like, they still call me coach. Coach, I'm going through this. I'm going through that. I'm just giggling. It's like, oh, really? Like that's what's going on. And they're like, why are you laughing? I said, because you don't understand. I walk these same hallways. I've been in the same locker room you were in. I was on those same practice fields. You can get through this. I did.
Mhm.
So I'm able to pour into them with my lived experience. But from that, I wanted to raise money for USF, and I'm talking to Avara Hill, and that's the company I work for now. I'm trying to solicit them to give a gift to support these student athletes, and then God laughed again and said no, and now I work for this company
Wow.
in mental health. So I'm in charge of growing their behavioral health department. And all I do is basically me and Derek Brooks is we're advocates. We talk about mental health and the things that we've experienced throughout our journey. So, you know, that post NFL was extremely hard. But when I learned now that my purpose is to serve and give, and my career was not to be Russell Wilson or, Colin Kaepernick or whoever, it was to take tools and then use them. So I feel like I'm fully moving now in my purpose. So I'll tell you the truth. The goal is to not make it to the NFL, is to play. I think no, my I'll take it a step further now and say, no, my mission was to gather tools and use them. And I think that's why I'm in a different position now than I think I've ever been. So I am back under center and I am playing quarterback and I am dishing the ball out to my receivers and all that kind of stuff. But my receivers are high school students. It's the people that are going through things with their mother and father. It's the Lawson family. It's the when people tell you no, you can't do it. So I'm still playing the game, but just in a different way.
I love that. Congratulations. That's big because yeah, you know,
Mm,
not so many people will give themselves permission to pivot. And I think that there's a way to being able to pivot while you're still living life on purpose.
yeah.
But you have to have a mentality to be able to, like you said from the beginning, I'm unplugging from this glitz and glamorous kind of lifestyle or
Mm,
just, being necessarily that person in the limelight because of football to saying, I still am powerful. I'm still worthy of all of the greatness. And you also learned in that pivot that you had to serve. A lot of times we want to receive all of these things, we want to receive all of these things, and we want all of the success and all of the accolades, and that's amazing because yes, we are destined for this, right? We're supposed to live a prosperous and abundant life.
right.
However, we also are wired to serve because that's why we feel good when we give. And generosity is something important. And you were able to take these life lessons and not only pour it back into the students that you were training to be quarterbacks or be athletes, but then even as a coach, right? And again, the humility in the pivoting and saying, hey, you know what? No matter how, whatever I got to do is like, I got to get experience because I know I'm going to be working.
Yeah,
And again, nothing against Walmart or anything like that, but you're like, that's not my lane.
right.
I know that my lane is in some type of athleticism or more than anything, just giving back. And I feel like that was a seed that was planted in you from very, very young on of just having, so many people around you that were just generous with their time, generous with their gifts. And it kind of catapulted you into this position that you're in now because I just saw also recently that you did a huge event with, giving back to high school students and athletes and all of these things and utilizing of our health as a platform because whether it's a job, whether it's a career, whether it's a sports team, whether it's a business, a lot of people sometimes get lost in the sauce, right? And then the
Right.
thing is like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just here to occupy my role and I'm out. No, it's all a platform for you to expand your brand and for you to more than anything continue to further your mission. And that's incredible to just witness because more students and more young athletes need that safe space,
Mhm.
and the fact that you were even backing up a little bit when you were at USF, like who better for them to talk to
Right.
and to get the ropes of this than somebody that actually walked the hallways, but laid on the field too and
Mm.
did the things professionally that they aspire to because those kids that are playing, football or basketball or things, they're aspiring to go into the league. They're aspiring to do all of the things that you accomplished already. And I think there's so much power in giving yourself permission to pivot to be able to do that because not too many people we hear the stories all the time. Athletes go broke after they leave the league or because they're just super depressed and don't know how to go out of it. And it's not to say that like you said, it was rough for you. You had to humble yourself to go back home after being in Atlanta without a job for over a year because you wasn't with the trappers and the rappers and all this other stuff. But you found out that you were like, I still have value in me. I'm still worthy just because your perception of me is not famous or I'm still that guy regardless of that.
Yeah.
And even, we met serving, right?
Yeah.
We were serving at a pageant. Shout out to Rachel.
Yeah.
We were serving at a pageant, and it was like you don't really see too many people that like have your background or your accolades that are just like, yeah, I'm gonna go serve and be a judge on this pageant. And also just, you spoke at both of our mental health conferences, one last year and this year, because and we see the advocacy that you have for mental health and talking a little bit about that, even being in this position that you're in now for overall health and expanding their behavioral health system. Why has mental health been even something so important for you?
Because like, for me, I really feel like everyone judges me based off this NFL shield or my performance as an athlete, not the character that I have or what I stand for and represent. I really truly want to be and I'm a voice essentially for so many young men, and I'm gonna say men first, that I've watched throughout my career in locker rooms have all these dreams, goals, and aspirations, and they never fully have that opportunity. And then I watch how they struggle with that. I ended my career after Super Bowls and President Obamas and all that. That same feeling happens for a lot of people in high school. That same feeling happens for a lot of people in college.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, I've watched one of my teammates on every level succumb to suicide. And I've watched how, if not that, just how their first love essentially could be this sport of football. And once they break up, that transition is hard for a lot of. And it's not just that love for it, it's the love for it and who's counting on me. It's the love for it, who's counting on me, and mom needs this, or I'm watching our dad needs this, or brother, sister, whatever it may be, or I'm in a situation where this may be my only option or outlet. And I've watched, that happens over and over again. I mean, it's still happening, and the biggest things for me too, I get extremely offended when people only put me in the category of football. They'd say, oh yeah, you're the football guy or you're the football mental health guy. Okay, well, I like to ask the question, you know, have you ever been in a relationship with a young man or a young woman and it didn't work out?
Yeah.
Did you deal with that? Have you ever been in a situation where you lost a loved one? Have you been in a situation where you've been nailed at gunpoint? Have you been in a situation where, someone told you you couldn't do something? Have you ever been in a situation where someone told you can't do something and you did it, and you're successful, you felt good? Or they said you couldn't do it and you didn't do it? You know, those things are a part of my journey, and I don't have to talk about football.
Yeah.
And I've never got on any, platform and said, I'm going to teach you how to do the X's and O's and how to run and how to catch.
Yeah.
No, like I'm talking about life experiences that happen to all of us.
Absolutely.
So no matter what happens in the sport that I used to play, I still have to go home and be a human being. And I don't think people really fully grasp and understand that. So I get offended when you or any not you, anyone just says it's, like I have a football lane. Like, no, there's a life lane that I've lived
Yeah.
along this journey as well. So, I always, my dad says this all the time. I always used to laugh now. They used to tell me no when I wanted something. I just thought they were mean.
Yeah.
They just didn't have it at the time. And I think a lot of us can understand that too.
Absolutely.
As adults, when we know bills be billing, so it's just a thing. And I'm for the people, not football players.
Love that.
Because that's something that we have participated in. If I label you for what you have done, what you participated in, what your job was, if I labeled you for your mistakes, like the thing, like, so I'm not a fan of any of those types of things, but that's what feeds me is how can I leave a legacy? And when I'm not here anymore, what has my name, what has my interactions, what has that meant to people? Not touchdowns,
Yeah.
not Super Bowls, because that stuff does not matter anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like you said earlier, you're still playing the game, you're still running the ball,
Yeah.
right? You're still running the play,
Oh yeah,
still getting the touchdown, just in a different way.
absolutely.
And I think that that's even more powerful because, like you said, you're beyond an athlete, you're beyond mental health advocate, you're personal advocate because you've experienced grief, you're experienced doubt, you've experienced even dealing with your own mental health, you've experienced loss, you've experienced pain, and still being able to say, I am going to give those things a purpose,
Absolutely.
right? And I'm going to give them a purpose, but I'm also going to turn that pain into power by leveraging it to use it as a platform to be able to serve more people. Because a lot of people is just like, I read the other day, like, well, maybe tea for you is testimony for me. So I'm good with it.
Man, you ain't lying, because even in the tea, right?
Yeah,
It's tea for me to say I cried at 3 o'clock in the morning on multiple occasions trying to figure out what's next. That's part of my testimony.
absolutely.
I wasn't crying because we lost a football game.
Yeah,
I was going through like what's next here, like
right,
where am I going?
right.
So yeah, that tea and testimonies, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like people will get it twisted, and it's just like, nah, because at the end of the day is when you know that your like you said, your identity is way more than the roles that we occupy, than the positions that you have, than the titles and the accolades and all these things, is who are you when all of those things leave?
Right,
What's your character look like?
right.
What beliefs shape you? What are those things that shape the human being that you are? Because that's what's even more powerful. And like you said, there's not too many people. Yeah, you could go play football, you know, physically get all these things, but how many football players can really say, "Hey, I'm gonna go and be a coach. I'm gonna go and have a training program. I'm gonna go and wash jerseys.
Right.
I'm gonna go and go back to the college where I was working at and take one position." And you hustling, you're grinding because you also didn't have experience when you're doing this.
Wow.
Excuse me. And you didn't let that stop you either. Cause you're like, I'm gonna gain my experience. I'm gonna make sure I'm putting in my 10,000 hours. Cause I can't just look at the salaries on these jobs and
Yeah.
expect because, this amazing person that I'm gonna get a job. Like, no, you have to actually have the credentials and you've built it brick by brick in just your position and your heart posture to say, hey, I'm going to serve my way. I'm going to learn while it is that I'm serving. I'm going to meet, I know I'm going to prosper regardless because that's part of my birthright. However, I know that nothing is going to be handed to me. There's no shortcuts in success.
Yeah. And you just made me think of something else.
Yeah.
Even my, job experience at USF, right? So you want me to raise money for USF. Okay, cool. You move me from coaching, which I'm familiar with talking to these players. You want me to raise money now. That's my opportunity to still be in college. Okay, well, check this out. I used to show up to work every day with a suit on. I was always taught and told, as a black man, I have to be 2 times better. So number one, regardless of what my constituents are wearing, khaki pants and polos, I'm wearing a suit every day just to prove I belong. Okay, that's part of insecurity. I don't think people understand that ain't got nothing to do with football. All right. So now I'm walking in this office. I'm having to be on time. I'm having to prove my worth and show everyone in the building that I might not know as much as you when it comes to raising money. I might not know how to fill out the forms and know what a gift agreement looks like and how to, really the lingo, versus a qualification person or solicitation and all those types of things and fundraising. But I'm having to learn, still prove that I belong, show up, on time, show up in my suit, prove myself. And that's when football goes against you. That's when they look at me like, well, he just here because that's BJ Daniels, a quarterback. Then I'm in meetings where, you know, the way I'm spoken to, is a jock, and I'm having to prove that I'm intellectually in a position where I can communicate with these donors who already, and this here's where hate comes involved because of football, because it's two sides of the coin.
Right.
These donors want to talk to me because these are the same people in the stands that watch me play. So now I have a one up on some of the people that I'm working with just because of relationships. So now, okay, well, do I overstep, my lane because,
Yeah.
these are people that have established relationships way earlier than I have because I'm new to that position at the time. I'll be really honest with you. I went on PTO. Everyone takes PTO.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And for PTO, I went to Charlotte, North Carolina to coach with the Carolina Panthers for a month. I took a month of PTO because I had that time. Okay. Well, when I got back from that PTO, I'm expecting to still be my job, which I was. But they gave my office away and I had a cubicle. So now,
Not giving your office away while you're on PTO.
yeah, yeah, without any type of communication, and I'm free,
So wild.
open to talk about it because it's like, that's not right. And at the
No.
same time, there's ideas and perceptions that play on both sides of the fence for me. Both. When I used to get free haircuts, that was cool. and I built a relationship with a gentleman. Now that you go to the NFL, it's $100. You know, like you are the NFL, so that's great as a USF employee, but why are you here? Is it just because you play football?
Yeah.
Like, so there's two sides of it, and I think, you know, it's interesting for me to just kinda, like, debunk a lot of different things because the people really don't know, and the perception, well, is not always reality, as we always know.
Right.
So,
Man, how did that feel when you came back and
I was
you
mad.
yeah,
I was upset, and
and
I had to hold face.
right,
I had to hold face. Be professional, you know, make sure I, you know, handle things the right way,
right.
you know, and not be the angry black man that also plays against me.
Mhm.
You know, not be the physical nature. Oh, he's a hothead. Okay, when he's mad, he must have
Can't fit the
this.
description.
Yeah, yeah. He must, you know, got hit in the head too many times if he snaps on somebody. You know, there's things that happen. So I'm very conscious and aware, and it's real life. It's real life. So I right now I can tell you I'm so much at peace because I'm living unapologetically, and it feels great. It doesn't matter what people they feel. And with the things that do come my way that may be negative, I always think about, you know, what's the spirit within that person. You know, because at the end of the day, people yell at you, people get mad, people honk the horn, do all that kind of stuff. But what are they really dealing with?
Yeah,
And how am I going to let them affect what I'm doing with where God is moving me?
absolutely.
Now, the enemy's your footstool. Florida State didn't want me. We beat USF. I moved over from trying to raise money. And now my company is one of the more prominent donors of USF. So the people I used to work with to serve the people I work for.
Come on, God.
Yeah.
Your enemies will be your footstool indeed. Man, that's crazy. Talk about full circle moment. But I love how you just like, I'm gonna play chess. I'm not playing checkers with y'all.
Yeah.
You know, I ain't got time. But that also it, I always say your confidence not
Mm.
is not confidence, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to know that you are not only connected to a higher power, right?
Mm.
But also that is like you're meant to live a prosperous life no matter what. And it's like man can't stop what God has already blessed, what God has already ordained.
Mm.
And it's interesting how that became a full circle moment. So, gonna give up your office and all of these things. And it's like you put me in a cubicle, but I'm gonna still come in here with my suit. I'm gonna still come in here to serve. I'm not gonna give you the satisfaction of giving you the reaction that you want. I'm gonna respond to this intellectually. I'm gonna respond to this emotionally mature enough so that I can get to where I'm going because regardless as to what, this is just I'm passing through here. I knew that
Yeah.
this was part of my transportation, not necessarily your destination.
Right.
So I know that you're a huge advocate for mental health. Talk to us a little bit about what made you want to put this in a book beyond the red zone.
Yeah. You know, I want to touch on this really quickly. Like,
Yeah,
I think when those things happen about, you know, enemies your footstool, I think it's very important to be aware of what your posture is. You know, I could have been in positions where I'm angry, mad, upset, or wanted to respond or be nasty or negative, but that's not the posture God wants us to be in. So, you know, when I brag, it's about what He's done, not what
yeah,
I've done. And
absolutely.
I can't go in there with a vindictive attitude
Yeah,
because it's a long game. It's a long
absolutely.
and at the end of it, you know, the people that think they're getting away and they think they did this and they're being slick and all that kind of stuff, the tables turn. You know, they do. And God blesses you sometimes with the opportunity to see those tables turn.
Absolutely.
You don't always get to.
Yeah.
You know, I think those are little, you know,
God winks.
God winks at you,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me to put everything in a book, you know, with Beyond the Red Zone, I really wanted to figure out how could I put my world together. And I struggled with that because I had all these experiences, I met all these people, did all these things, but I didn't know how to use it. I had no idea. Like, you know, how do I lean on these people, experiences, journeys? And a book was the best thing. Was the thing because ever since that happened, publishing a book, you know, and it's not like I said, it's not about football, it's my experiences,
Right.
the things I went through and how to overcome things and resilience. And that has propelled me into these rooms and spaces that I am in now. Well, even being here, I don't think happens without that book. And I'm learning that it's helping a lot of different people because
So
I'm just being real. You know, I'm talking about it all and there's no sugarcoat.
yeah.
You know, I've had people in my past, you know, men, women, coaches, you know, teachers who have read it and they had no idea that I was dealing with these things or going through these things. Because we all, save face in certain,
Yeah, absolutely.
but I have a lot of raw emotion and just realness as to, for example, being financially stable at a young age. When did I become big dog? When did older people start calling me big dog? When did I become the focal point of the family and the breadwinner? And then the pressures that come with that.
Absolutely.
And then when I don't have that anymore, or I'm not on that platform anymore, I love Tony Dungy because he always talks about, don't worry about your platform, be intentional about your impact. That saved me. That put me in the position to serve. So it's not about my platform anymore. It's about the impact. And it's
Absolutely.
interesting that every time I started to impact and was focused on that, my platform continued to grow.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. So it was just there's a lot of real things in that book. Marshawn Lynch, John Gruden, Jim Levitt, Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh. Those are all people mentioned, but also have given me quotes and have supported it.
Yeah.
I'm just thankful because those people are also a part of my life and my journey. So
Absolutely. Where can people purchase the book?
it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon, Target, Walmart, and Kindle.
Okay. Yes, it is. And it's also available on Audible on Amazon as well.
Oh man, if you want to hear my voice, sure.
And it sounds just like her, by the way. It's not a recording.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And I love that because it's giving back to the people.
Mm,
And a lot of times people focus on, the money or the success or the accolades or like you said, the platform, but
mm,
it's about the impact, right? It's about the legacy. It's about those things just are a byproduct of focusing on the bigger mission, of focusing on the bigger, on the bigger picture and really your North Star of what it is that you want to be known for, what it is, who it is that you want to be in this world, who it is that you want to even just be remembered as when
right.
we're not here again, right? So what are some of the things that we talked about, your journey a little bit. Tell us a little bit about how do you unplug? How do you unwind from, the day, the the work, just life, period. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, even before I came here, I love to work out. I like to challenge myself. I also use, daily frustrations as motivation.
Yeah.
It helps me get through my reps. If I'm, lifting heavy weights, I like to play basketball. I do that very competitively. That's the only competitive itch I have. I'm not going to go out on the football field. I'm not going to put on pads. I'm not,
Yeah.
running sprint. I'm not doing any of that. I'm playing basketball. That's my cardio,
Yeah.
but also get to have fun and enjoy, the competitive nature in it. I can draw. So that's something a lot of people don't know. I have a degree in criminology, but a minor in graphic design. So drawing is something I like to do. Reading. I wasn't a big reader. I was not an avid reader, but when I was forced to read my book on Audible,
Yeah.
that was hard because I had to, voice inflections and all that kind of stuff. And then I found out I struggled reading. You got to do it live on a microphone, but it
Yeah.
was cool. But reading, I have some books that I need to finish. I like to go out with my friends. I like to, especially restaurants. Tampa has a plethora of them,
Absolutely.
but, just those things are extremely important to me. And I feel like I have to do that at some point, in time throughout the week or every day, essentially every day, listen to gospel music, listen to Darius Daniels, TDJ,
Yeah.
Pastor Keith, in between, meetings. I don't even like to talk on the phone, but I'll probably listen to, Kirk Franklin or some gospel music, John P. Key, to kind of just put my mind in the right, posture.
Yeah.
Because, the devil won't stop chasing me. So I'm trying to keep him
Yeah. Gotta contend.
at a distance. Yeah.
Yes. Gotta outwit it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's incredible. Well, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Maybe whether it's an athlete, whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, whether they're dealing with, mental health or they're dealing with just pursuing their dreams or just even pursuing making a difference or leaving a legacy. What is something that you want to leave them with?
Yeah. Probably just find a routine. My life has gotten so much easier in ways when I found out that it's important to wake up early. It is important to go to bed at night. So then you can, wake up early and there's always another day. And that new day, I make sure I pray before I get out the bed. I sit up in my eyes. And then if I literally roll out of bed and then I fall on my knees. And I think, my routine is that, showering and brushing teeth and cooking breakfast, making sure, what I'm, prepared mentally for the day. But I'd say a routine is extremely important, whatever that looks like for you, in the morning or at night, that keeps you in a
Absolutely.
space. And then, really relying on the people that love you, I think is extremely important.
Good.
I've always, been a sociable person. I'm very nice. I like talking to people. I like helping people, but not everybody's for you,
Mm.
so I've really had to learn how to just lean on the people that mean the most. And a lot of times, throughout my NFL career, I ignored those people that love me the most because I was so busy and I had so much around me. But, my circle's getting smaller, not because of negativity. It's just I want to make sure I'm loving on the people that's loving on me. So,
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you. I think that is something also very, as we wrap up here, something great that you said. It's so important for people to just have a good routine. I always say like when you master the mundane, magic happens.
mm,
And how you start your day sets the tone for your day. So you got to put on your armor.
mm,
And I don't think enough people talk about that because a lot of people just see, the social media or they might see you out or they see this podcast. They're like, oh, he got it all together. It's like, no, but it's like you have to have a firm foundation.
right.
Have to have a firm foundation. And I also love that you said being intentional on just loving on the people that love you and having discernment because all of those things matter, when you're in pursuit of not only happiness, but in pursuit of making an impact and just leaving a legacy. So thank you again for such an amazing conversation.
Pre-
Appreciate you always.
Appreciate you.
So if you want to tell people like where they can find you, where they can connect with you.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, BJ Daniels 5. I'm on LinkedIn as well. That's about it. Twitter, I don't really be on as much, but Instagram is a big tool for me. It's a way where I can post reels and videos and pictures, and you'll get to kind of see my journey. And I'm not afraid to follow back either. So,
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and tune in. Until next time, blessings on blessings.